Welcome to part 3 of our series on Bambu Studio. Today we're going to be talking about supports, how to set them up, and some best practices for getting the best prints. Let's jump right in. Jumping right in, we're going to be talking about supports today, how to set them up, how to use them, and how to make some modifications to get better prints. Right here, I've uploaded one of my most popular products. This is a skull planter that I designed. It's got a geometric shape, and it requires a lot of supports when printing. So I'm going to very quickly just jump over to supports, turn these off, and I'm going to slice this plate without supports. Okay, right away, as you notice, we had our orange warning pop up saying that we need to add supports to this. So I'm going to come to this underside and I'm going to show you everywhere we need supports. This bluish purple color here, this is showing where the object is on the bed, and everything that's blue is something that needs to be supported. So when we're looking at this, you can do this with any object, look underneath, see if something's missing. You also notice under the eyes up here, we need a little bit of support. Okay, so let's go back and turn on our supports. So over here, we have our supports enabled, and you'll notice that by default, I have a tree auto. I would recommend a tree or a normal auto, and this is how I decide when I'm going to use each object. If it is a more organic shape, meaning not a square or a perfect flat object, I'm going to use a tree, a more organic support. If I'm trying to support a 90-degree overhang that's flat, I'm going to use normal because I feel like you get better, that bottom layer is a little bit better with geometric shapes. So that's how I choose to use which one. Always leave them on auto unless you want to get in and paint your own supports, which I actually have a full tutorial on that you can check out up here. Okay, moving on. So style, default, I usually keep it on default unless I'm trying to support something that's super tall. I may go to a stronger version. Or if I need just a little bit of support, I may go to a slim. This is just going to increase or decrease the number of walls and the thickness of your tree. So, and you can set your threshold angle. Standard threshold angle, I believe, is about 30. So we're going to leave this here. We're going to leave this on the build plate, and we're going to remove any small overhangs. And we're going to slice this again. Okay, so now you'll see that we have some supports. I'm going to turn this off. And almost everything in blue looks like it's getting supported pretty well. So a couple things to pay attention to here is there's a lot of trees coming up from this. There's a lot of connections to the plate. All good things. I can zoom in and look and see how these are looking. Everything looks great on this. And this is actually the default settings for this print that I've used and printed hundreds of times. So other things to pay attention to is as I scroll down through these settings, 90% of the time, you don't need to mess with these settings. Where and when I mess with these really depends on after I've printed an object and then if it did a good job or not. If I felt like it needed more support, this is usually where I come down and I will play around with this tree support section. So branch distance is 5 millimeters. If I feel like I needed more support, I'm going to lower that. If I felt like I have too much support, I'm going to increase this. By default, it's going to leave each one of these branches about 5 millimeters apart. Your branch diameter is 2 millimeters, and then the branch angle, meaning the steepest angle that it will print at, is 45 degrees. This is something that I've played around with a lot, and I found that Bambu got this one right. 45 degrees is great. And then your branch diameter angle, 5 degrees, usually works really well. So again, the where I play around and where I'm looking at stuff really is the distance and this diameter. And so if I need more support, I'm going to shorten the distance and I'm going to increase this diameter. And so in this case, this looks okay. There's a few spots that I may want to decrease this distance. So I'm going to drop this down to 3 and just show you visually what this looks like. And I'm going to increase this to 5. And we're going to go over and slice this again. Okay, And what I want you to notice is we really increased and added extra support here. If you compare these two side by side, it is quite a bit different and the support looks really good. So this is how I would increase those branch diameters up at the object, something like that. If you don't like it, you can always just quickly reset it, and that's just fine. Now, one last thing, I am going to show you what it looks like if we go to more of a normal and leave this here. And we're going to go ahead and slice this. Okay. And what you're going to notice is we added almost an hour to our print. So down here it says 9 hours and 57 minutes. I believe we were just barely over 9 hours before. So we added quite a bit of time, and we have a lot of bed adhesion. These supports are going to be a little bit difficult or more difficult to take off than your standard tree, but you'll also notice I don't have any support up here on the eyes in doing this. And that's just the way that the normal works. So like I was saying before, if your object is flat, run with the normal. If it's more of a geometric and kind of all over the place, I really like to go back to the default of the tree. I do want to show you one last thing. So I'm going to jump over and put this back to tree. And I'm going to show you another thing that helps with bed adhesion. And so especially for an object like this, where I have just a few spots that are really attached to this bed, I like to come down here and add a brim. So by default, you're set on auto. And I want to add an outer brim only in this case. So I'm going to choose an outer brim, and I'm going to leave it at 5 millimeters. That's usually pretty standard. Maybe we'll go 7 on this one. And then it shows you how big the gap is between your brim width and the object. Now, in most cases, this does a really good job. But one thing that you should note is this is just barely off. If your initial line width is off, so by default we're at 0.42, then you don't get great adhesion. So if you feel like your brim isn't connecting to the object very well, or it's connecting too well, usually it has to do with this initial layer default line width. So just keep that in mind. I've gone through and done some tests. They work really well once you get those dialed in. So jumping back to the outer brim, and I'm going to leave all of these set, and we're going to just go ahead and slice this plate. All right, we've got that sliced. Now we're going to take a look at it. Everything looks good. Brims look really good. The support looks good. The eyes are being supported. I do wish I could get a little more support in here, but overall, I think this is a really good start, and should be able to print this. Thank you for sticking around to the end. If you have any questions, please drop a comment below and let me know what you want me to cover in part 4 of this series.